This episode contains spoilers for Paper Mario. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cinephile Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Bo Smith. You know, I had this idea recently of spiritual successors, and it's funny to think about. On one hand, they're supposed to be a direct follow-up to a game that's adored by many, but on the other hand, they're supposed to be a new, original idea that goes in a different direction than what it's inspired by. Now, some of y'all, you may be thinking of various games, but the one that comes to my mind is the very first Paper Mario. Now, this game was originally planned to be a sequel for the SNES classic Super Mario RPG, and even in Japan, it was titled Super Mario RPG 2. Nintendo had originally approached Square Enix, the company that first made the game, to helm the sequel as well. But this didn't come to pass, whether it was because Square decided to focus on production of Final Fantasy VII, or because Nintendo was mad that Final Fantasy was being moved to Sony's PlayStation. Either way, Final Fantasy VII was at the center of it. Instead, Intelligent Systems was hired to develop the game, and they would later go on to make entries for the Fire Emblem and WarioWare series. Super Mario RPG 2 was first showcased at the Nintendo Space World event in 1997, and it started to show off the paper style we would later become familiar with. However, not much news came out after that, and it wouldn't be until near the end of the N64's life cycle in 2001 that the world would be shown the newly retitled Paper Mario. Now, when you start the game, you are treated to a theater-like presentation of Bowser stealing the Star Rod. It's an item with the ability to grant wishes, and he also traps the 7 Star Spirits, the guardians who protect the Star Rod, into cards. After starting a file up, you open up to the Mario Brothers house, where they receive an invitation for Princess Peach to come to party at the castle. When Mario arrives and meets with the princess, there's an earthquake, and soon you realize that Bowser has built a castle underneath Princess Peach's castle as it rises to the sky. Bowser crashes into the party and starts to fight Mario, but soon he whips out the Star Rod and makes himself invincible. Mario is quickly defeated, and Bowser throws him out of the castle, where you see him tumbling down the night sky. He lands in Goomba Village, where he's aided by Goombario, very on the nose, and his family. While he is resting, Eldstar, the leader of the Star Spirits, comes to Mario in a vision and lets him know to go to Shooting Star Summit, and he and the other Star Spirits can let Mario know what's happening. With Goombario's help, Mario makes his way to Shooting Star Summit, where weakened holograms of the Star Spirits ask Mario to rescue them so they can aid him in taking down Bowser and retrieve the Star Rod and be able to grant people's wishes again. So, Mario sets off on a new adventure, making new allies along the way, and begins to thwart Bowser's evil schemes again. Back in the sky, you do see Princess Peach befriend a star kid named Twink, who helps the princess while she's stuck in the castle and helps deliver messages to Mario. While this story is mostly the same premise as most other previous Mario titles, just in a narrative form, you already feel like this adventure is on a much grander scale, and it turns out to be just as true as you travel across the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, right off the bat, you can see how unique this game's design choice is. If the title didn't give it away already, the game is in the style of a pop-up book, with most of the characters in the foreground being made of paper, while some objects, buildings, and backgrounds are 3D. It's a style that, from my knowledge, hasn't been copied and is a very cool world to explore. The game is very charming as well. Every NPC has some dialogue options, there's great humor injected into various parts of the script that will definitely lead to memorable moments for each player too. While most of the world is made of paper, there isn't much in the way that incorporates into gameplay, which is something every sequel has taken advantage of. However, the different areas of the Mushroom Kingdom are very stylized, and each one has a distinctive theme and color palette that match it. The Forever Forest is foreboding in nature, the Crystal Palace is made of ice and glass that mirrors the foreground, while the background may offer some different visual tricks. And Shy Guy's Toy Box is a bright, cheerful playland that looks like it just came straight out of the child's imagination. Characters you meet along the way in your adventure all seem to have different personalities as well, and the dialogue for some of them is really funny to read. Some of my favorite interactions are with the Koopa brothers, who are just rip-off versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Koopa Koot, an old Koopa who will ask for favors and most of the time will only pay you 1 coin and act like he's giving you a lot of money. And then Junior Troopa, a recurring boss throughout the game that tries to prove he's stronger than Mario. The colorful cast of characters seems to always rotate to equally good characters, and even some of the townsfolk change up their dialogue as you progress throughout the story. Now let's take a look at the gameplay because it turns out to be different from most other RPGs. Now, where it does stay similar is that it's separated into an overworld screen and a battle screen. While in the overworld, you can interact with NPCs, objects, and buy items for your adventure. There are several puzzles in each area that you must solve or have your partner help you solve. You also have the ability to land the first strike on an enemy before fighting, however, they can do the same to you, so just be careful. The battle mechanics in the game stands out among the other RPGs that came before it though. Mario can use jump, hammer, an item, or a star spirit to attack an enemy. The jump and the hammer are going to be your main weapons, and you can use certain moves or effects depending on the badge you have equipped, which we'll get into in a bit. The star spirits you rescue along the way each give you a new ability, and that can range from either healing Mario, helping attack, or giving the enemy a status effect. However, there is a limit on how often you can use these based on a star meter that can only be filled up after Mario's turn has ended, or if he rests at an inn. After his turn, your partner attacks next, or you can switch the order of who goes first. Depending on who is active in your party, they can have a variety of moves to help you out in battle. For example, Kooper can hit one or multiple enemies on the ground, while Bo, not me, a party member in the game, can either attack or turn Mario invisible during an enemy's turn. Specialized moves may cost flower points to use or FP, so keep an eye on your total at all times to make sure you don't run out. After the prologue of the game, you will be able to use action commands in fights. These are basically timed interactions when you fight, so if you attack an enemy with a jump, you can hit the A button and do an extra hit. It's the same way on defense, where if an enemy attacks you, hit A at the right time and you can defend to take less damage. During development, Shigeru Miyamoto actually suggested this in order to give the game more interaction and visual flair to keep players engaged. In order to level up in this game, you must collect 100 star orbs from battles. Once you reach that, the counter will reset to 0 and you will level up. Mario doesn't actually gain any defense or offense when he levels up. The only way to increase those are by equipping badges or finding shoe and hammer upgrades. Instead, you can choose to level up one of 3 stats: HP, FP, or BP, your badge points, and this is where the strategy of the game really comes into play. Now, when I first played Paper Mario as a kid, I didn't see the importance of badges, but now that I'm older, I can realize that they make your adventure much, much easier. Badges are what make Paper Mario unique among other traditional RPGs. They're used to help Mario give new abilities for his attacks or to help improve his stats. Badges can be separated into 3 categories: overworld use, combat, and stats. The overworld badges are used in your traversal and can include things like Mario's spin dash to go further or finding hidden star pieces. That last one is especially useful because star pieces are a type of currency you exchange with one character for rare badges, so you definitely want to find those. The next type of badge is combat. These are the ones that can give your hammer and jump weapons new attack abilities. Where usually you can only attack one enemy at a time normally, you can have abilities that attack multiple enemies, throw your hammer at an airborne enemy, or even bounce on one enemy consecutively until you mess up the action command. The last badge type is stat badges. These can help Mario increase damage, give an extra boost to one of your additional attacks, or increase HP or FP as long as it's equipped. Each badge may have a particular useful effect for you, so try experimenting around and equip various ones to find out a playstyle that works for you or against a particular boss. The important thing to remember is that badges require a certain amount of BP to equip, and you can only have 30 BP in total after leveling up. Now, you may notice that badges only apply to powering up Mario and giving him new moves, so how do your partners become more powerful? Throughout the world, you'll find a box that has a blue orb inside of it. Once you hit it, you have the option to level up a partner. This will increase their offensive power and give them a new move to use in battle. After Chapter 5, you will receive an item that will allow you to upgrade your partners again, receiving a boost in power and another move in combat. There's a lot that goes into Paper Mario, and I've really only covered the basics of it. While the overall narrative is the same, rescue Peach from Bowser, each area you visit has its own stories that weave their way into Mario's adventure. If you know me, you know that I love when a game has a hub world. For Paper Mario, this is Toad Town. It's the first place you arrive at when you leave the Mario Brothers house, and you will always visit it when you go from one chapter to the next. It's a world that grows with you, more places begin to open up, there's always secrets to discover, and interactions change as the story progresses. There's also a pipe that leads to the sewers of the Mushroom Kingdom. This area tests your character's progression to see if you are ahead of the curve with battling. While you need to go down there to get access to one of the game's later chapters, most everything else is optional to explore, but it's worth it because you will find additional goodies. The sewers also contain pipes that will have shortcuts to some of the previous areas you've been to before, so that way you don't have to travel across several screens. Now, while gameplay is varied, there are still some tropes that the game can't seem to escape. Since this is an RPG, you will be fighting. A lot. Especially if you want to increase your HP, BP, or FP. Regular enemies don't offer a lot of star orbs unless you get into an encounter with a large group, so you may be relying on bosses to help increase your count. While I think that fighting is pretty balanced overall, the one thing I don't like is that if your partner takes damage, then they are stunned for the same amount of turns as the damage they took. It forces Mario to fight by himself, and you can't use like a 1-up shroom to speed up their recovery. I would much rather your partners have an HP bar and to heal them rather than them leaving me hanging out to dry. There's also a part where you need to get to Flower Fields, one of the late game chapters. You'll have to go on a fetch quest to find characters that have these magic seeds. If you haven't been collecting them as you progress through the game, then that is a lot of backtracking to do. And as I mentioned before, you can only get 30 total BP to use for badge equips. And while I do think it does balance the game, I wish there was some sort of bonus after the game where you could go past that limit and increase your character's stats. I also wish there were more mechanics in the gameplay that allude to the fact that it's a paper world. It has one moment where as you're falling down, you start to slowly fall to the ground like if you dropped a piece of paper, but that's really the only part that incorporates that. One thing I briefly touched on earlier was the fact that Princess Peach uses Twink to send information on Bowser's plans to Mario. At the end of each chapter, there are short segments where you get to play as Peach and explore the castle to find out what Bowser's up to. It can be a nice break from the main game, and most of the time you have to use stealth to sneak past the guards. However, if you do get caught, then you're escorted back to your room and you have to start the whole process all over again. These segments can sometimes be hit or miss, honestly. The best moment can actually influence what happens in one of the chapters of the game, while the other is just a baking segment where if you mess up, then it may take you 3 to 5 minutes to get through the process again. So let's wrap up the rest of the story. Spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to get the rest of the game ruined for you. Mario defeats Bowser. Did you expect anything differently? But seriously, let's see the lead up to it. After rescuing all of the Star Spirits, you are given the power of the Star Beam, which will negate the Star Rod's effects. After getting in a vessel that leads you to the castle in the sky, you must trek through Bowser's castle in order to reach the entrance to Peach's castle. This sequence was probably one of my favorite parts of the game, as you get to explore the dungeons of Bowser's lair, and also have some more fun puzzles of the game. After getting out, you enter Peach's castle and face off against Bowser in the same spot he previously defeated you in. He uses the Star Rod's power to turn invincible again, but as soon as you use the Star Beam's power, he returns to normal and you can take him out. After the fight, Bowser takes Peach to the top of the castle where you meet him one final time on a platform that Kammy Koopa has invented, which amplifies his power. Bowser grows in size and uses the Star Rod once again, but when you try to use the Star Beam on him this time, it has no effect. You're taken out of the battle for a scripted fight with Twink and Peach versus Kammy Koopa where, after winning the fight, Twink tells Peach to wish for Mario to have the strength to beat Bowser, because wishes do grant powers to help give strength to the Star Spirits. When you pick back up on Mario's fight, your Star Beam is upgraded so that you can take away Bowser's invincibility and make it a more fair fight. Now this fight isn't too terribly hard, but what can be annoying is that Bowser can use the Star Rod to either heal himself or create a beam that will damage both you and your partner and negate any power-up status effects Mario has. He also can make himself invincible again, so you'll have to use Mario's Star Beam move, and that eliminates Mario's turn where you could be using a more powerful move to take out Bowser. After dealing enough damage, Bowser will shrink back down to regular size and the platform begins to overload and blow up. Luckily, the Star Spirits save your party and help lower the castle back to the ground. With Bowser defeated, Mario returns the Star Rod to the Star Spirits, and they thank Mario for his help, as well as Twink for helping weaken Bowser and taking care of the princess. A few days pass and we see Mario recounting the adventure to Luigi when they get a letter from Parakarry, one of your party members. He says that Princess Peach has invited Mario, his friends, and the Mushroom Kingdom to celebrate. You head to the castle where Peach once again thanks everyone for their help in saving the day, and there's a party for everyone. As the credits roll, you see Luigi leading a parade with many of the characters from the game and some of the set pieces you encountered. It's a fun moment that has some good gags and that will make you smile and chuckle, and it's also a great callback to Super Mario RPG, where they do that at the end of the game during their credits. So, is there more to do after finishing the final boss? Unfortunately, there really isn't. Paper Mario came out in a time where you can't save after completing the game, so you just have to hit the reset button and get taken back to the last save point before your final boss. There isn't really much to do in the form of side quest either. The only thing I can really think of is completing all of Koopa Koot's errands and delivering all of Parakarry's lost letters. Those do get some rewards, but they're not like these game-breaking rewards. You also have a board in your house that gives details on how many star pieces, badges, and recipes you have collected, but there is no reward for getting them all. There are a couple of hidden bosses, but I put those in quotes because you can fight them at any time, and there's really no cool reward for beating them. Sadly, your brother Luigi can't be a partner in the game, but you can return home to visit with him, and he has one of my favorite secrets in the game. After you get the first shoe upgrade, you can go to your bedroom and ground pound a specific spot on the floor, which leads to a basement. In it, you will have access to Luigi's diary, which he will keep writing throughout the game. There's a lot of funny dialogue written in it, with great allusions to Mario Party, Mario Kart, and some of the Mario sports games. There's even a note where Luigi mentions he's afraid of ghosts, which I believe was a setup on the developers' part because they probably knew Luigi's Mansion would be released later that year for the new system, the GameCube. Paper Mario received great reviews and would set the stage for it to become one of Nintendo's popular IPs. As the first adventure in the series, it sets a good formula and example of what future games would look like with the storytelling and visual design. I think many would consider this to be the second best game of the franchise. I've played every one of them except for the Origami King, but I think I would have to agree with the sentiment. And when first place is the Thousand Year Door, second place ain't a bad spot to be in. Overall, I give Paper Mario a 9 out of 10. For a first entry, it hits the mark on many of the things it sets out to do and leaves you wanting more, but there are a few opportunities for improvement as well. So, have you guys played Paper Mario before? If so, how does it stack up to other RPGs on your list of games? Let me know. You can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter where I post updates. If you want to support the show, you can subscribe to the Patreon account. Make sure you also share the show with other fellow cinephiles and gamers you know out there. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode.